Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DC Download. I'm your host, Marty Comertz. I hope you're doing well. I'm creating this podcast to be able to provide some different perspective from a lifelong DC fan, a fan of superhero movies in general, just to talk about and discuss, you know, the current state of the DCU, the DC universe. Recently taken over by Peter Safran and James Gunn. Warner Brothers Discovery being overseen by David Zaslav. There's a lot of different feelings. There's a lot of mixed emotions going into all this. My goal is to help open the platform, broaden the horizons, for us to be able to come together and unite as a fandom versus all this anger and discontent and negativity that we've seen on a day in, day out basis. So my goal is that with the DC Download is to be able to provide a platform for us, the fans, to get together, discuss, talk about what's going on, things we're looking forward to, talk about the things that are working, things that are not working. This is a lifelong journey that we're all going to be working on and traveling together with. So I welcome you to come in, my perspective, my feelings as a fan, ignore the background noise of everything going on, and hopefully I'll be able to help shed some light on with what we can expect moving forward in terms of what I want to see as a fan. So I did take a few notes here that I just kind of wanted to discuss and kind of, bullet point, and open up the discussion with what's going on. So at this point, I just want to kick it off and say that, look, the DC universe is being rebooted. No matter which way we slice this, the time for restoring the Snyderverse, I'm the biggest Zack Snyder fan that you could imagine from top to bottom. But the ship has sailed, folks. I mean, it just has, unfortunately. We got the Snyder cut of Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, one of the most epic movies of all time. But make no mistake, Warner Brothers Discovery has made a conscious decision to end it. It's over. The party's over. The ship has sailed. They've determined that at this point, the best thing that they can do is reboot the entire universe, start from square one, and build up these collection of characters that we've known and loved under Zack's direction in order for us to grow and move forward. There is no going back. And I'm going to touch upon it a little bit later in terms of why I think it's probably just a waste to even release The Flash and Aquaman 2, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. A lot of it, we're just spinning our wheels, but in a lot of ways, WBD has already spent the money. They've already made the investment. They have nothing to lose by releasing the movie and trying to make whatever they can out of it, regardless of who goes and sees it, whether it's you, me, or the average fan. I think that's kind of with where they're at in that headspace. But I'll touch upon that here in just a little bit. So, obviously, the news came down from Henry Cavill himself. He's out as Superman. This was a huge disappointment for me when James Gunn decided and announced that he would be writing a Superman movie with a younger version of Superman, and that Henry would not be returning. I love Henry Cavill. I think he was tremendous. He was a great ambassador for Superman. Don't know that I necessarily always agreed with his ideas for the storytelling aspect, because I don't always believe that Superman has to be all good all the time. This isn't the 1980s. It's not the 1970s with where Superman was in the red tights. Superman had to, save cats out of trees. I personally, as a fan, I don't want to pay to see that. That's not why I show up to the movies to watch a Superman movie. And truthfully, Man of Steel was a step in that right direction in terms of establishing and deconstructing the hero. Because again, look, not every day is like a honky dory. Everything's good, sunshine and rainbows in this universe. It just wasn't, and that's real life. Superman had to deal with real life issues and scenarios. So credit to Zack Snyder for going out on that ledge. Now it's going to be up to James Gunn to deliver us a story that fans can get invested with and buy into. because whether we like it or not, the train's moving forward. And if this doesn't succeed, this DC universe, this 10-year plan doesn't succeed, well, guess what? We're still going to be in square one. They're not going to bring back the Snyderverse because that contingent of fans isn't going to say, oh, well, let's go back to with what we did nearly 20 years ago. That's just not going to happen. So they'll just end up rebooting it again. It's like a vicious cycle for with what DC is doing right now, Warner Brothers Discovery. Hopefully they can lay out this plan. You'll show up to the theaters, you'll buy into who these characters are, and we can celebrate DC Comics being with where they need to be in terms of the best comic to movie adaptations we've ever seen in our lifetime. That's all I can ask for as a fan, right? So Henry Cavill out as Superman, very sad to see him go. I hope he has, I think he would make a tremendous James Bond if he were to get into that film franchise. Hopefully he'll get the opportunity. I understand he can be difficult to work with from a talent perspective in terms of where he thinks he is with what he should be earning. But he's shown potential and a lot of different acting chops from the Mission Impossible series, Enola Holmes 1 and 2, The Witcher, so I think that he would be a tremendous James Bond if they elected to go that route. It's really up in the air as they haven't really announced what's going on with the Bond series 007, but that's where things are at. I'm going to miss Henry, but I can always go back, watch Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. To this day, Batman vs. Superman will always be my favorite movie of all time. Done, it has to be the Ultimate Edition, with Zack's Ultimate Director's Cut as far as that goes. But I just thought that was a tremendous movie, a lot of heart, and just a tremendous movie score from Hans Zimmer. So I don't need John Williams' Superman theme to make a return. I just want something to be something I can connect to in the movies with the next version of Superman and Clark Kent as we move forward. So Ben Affleck done as Batman. Like another one of those things where it's like, okay, we've made the decision, we're moving on. It's like James Gunn said, we're not going to have 12 Batmans. It's just not going to happen. Ben's pushing 50 years old in his own personal life. They're going to go with Robert Pattinson as the new Batman. They're not necessarily going to merge the universes right away, but they're going to find an actor to play the new Superman in a similar age range as they continue to build out this universe. So I'm sure James Gunn's going to be announcing a lot of these things. Casting hasn't been decided. And that I'm sure there's going to be folks that speculate as to what the next Superman's going to look like. But I think that Robert Pattinson's pretty steadfast in being that Batman of the DC universe moving forward. I personally liked The Batman by Matt Reeves. I thought it was a tremendous film. It wasn't necessarily an origin, but more or less a telling of like year 2 of Batman. And I think that James Gunn wants to kind of go in a similar direction with the new Superman movie as they continue to build that out. So that'll be really interesting too. Having an established Superman, like we really haven't seen that. Everything's been an origin story outside of the Richard Donner Superman and then Superman 2, which I consider Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, kind of like a true sequel to Superman, obviously. And those that had seen the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 know what I'm talking about in terms of being like that connective tissue. Superman 3 and 4, I mean, sequels, they all have their things that you like or dislike about them, and obviously the iconic John Williams score, but again, that was a different time, different era. So